Let's take a listen at this one first.
Previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. This is about oil and regime change. Mr. Speaker, James Madison warned us that in no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war and peace to the legislature and not the executive. Madison called it the crown jewel of Congress. The framers understood a simple truth. To the extent that war-making power devolves to one person, liberty dissolves. If the president believes military action against Venezuela is justified and needed, he should make the case and Congress should vote before American lives and treasure are spent on regime change in South America. Let's be honest about likely outcomes. Do we truly believe that Nicolas Maduro will be replaced by a modern-day George Washington? How did that work out? In Cuba, Libya, Iraq, or Syria, previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. If it were about drugs, we'd bomb Mexico or China or Colombia, and the president would not have pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez. This is about oil and regime change.
Yep.
And when it comes to regime change, we've already been down this road with Venezuela with nothing to show for it. In 2019, we recognized Juan Guaido. We seized their embassy here in D.C. We were told that regime change was imminent. Years later, Maduro remains in power. Today, we're told to place our hopes in other exiled figures. Edmundo Gonzalez and Maria Corina Machado. I wish them well, I do. But Congress should not express moral sympathy in the form of a blank check for military escalation and American lives. And let's take a moment to acknowledge the contradiction at the heart of this policy. This administration tells us that the Maduro regime is made up of narco-terrorists, and by escalating toward war, we would predictably create countless refugees. At the same time, this administration has moved to end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans and deports them back to the very regime it condemns. So which is it? Are we prepared to receive swarms of the 25 million Venezuelans who will likely become refugees and billions in American treasure that will be used to destroy and inevitably rebuild that nation? Do we want a miniature Afghanistan in the Western Hemisphere? If that cost is acceptable to this Congress, then we should vote on it as a voice of the people and in accordance with our Constitution. And yet today, here we aren't even voting on whether to declare war or authorize the use of military force. All we're voting on is a war powers resolution that strengthens the fabric of our republic by reasserting the plain and simple language in the Constitution that Congress must decide questions of war. I urge support for this resolution, and I yield back.
Now, this is coming also on the media. They have quoted at a meeting of his cabinet, Donald Trump, at the White House 2 weeks ago. U.S. President Donald Trump looked around the long room filled with his top advisors, administration officials, and aides, and made a prediction. So this is a prediction coming directly from Donald Trump, and this is what he predicted and said. Quote, the next Republican presidential candidate, he said, is probably, quote unquote, sitting at this table. Donald Trump was saying this. Quote, it could be a couple of people sitting at this table, end quote. He added, hinting at possible electoral clashes to come. Despite a constitutional amendment limiting him to 2 4-year terms, his supporters chanted, quote, 4 more years. At a rally last Tuesday night in Pennsylvania, Trump said at the time that the final 3 years of his second term amount to an quote-unquote eternity. But in the cabinet room last week, when talking about prospects for 2028 Republican president nomination, he was clear. Quote, it's not going to be me, end quote. The next presidential election may seem a long way off, but Trump's own speculation and certain frictions with Trump's coalition suggest that the jockeying to succeed and define the Make America Great Again MAGA movement after Trump is well underway. Then this is again coming from BBC News. They have said, quote, in the last month's local elections, the Republican Party lost support among the minority and working class voters who helped Trump win back the White House in 2024. Members of his team have feuded over policy, and some, most notably Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, have cut loose from his orbit, accusing the president of losing touch with the Americans who gave him power. There has been speculation about fractures within the MAGA base in certain quarters of the international press as well as at home. On Monday, a headline in Washington Post asked, quote, MAGA leaders warn Trump the base is checking out. Will he listen? Now, these are very serious development. They have said, BBC said, quote, the warning signs are there. While Trump has long been known for being in tune with his base, the months ahead will pose a series of challenges to the president and his movement. Nothing less than his political legacy is at stake. What we are predicting to see in the coming days will be a political tsunami in the United States. Let me know, what do you think?